There are moments in life when the air feels heavy with meaning, as if something unseen is brushing against your skin. My friend, pause with me here for just a moment, because right now, whether you realize it or not, there exists a version of you who is no longer tangled in confusion, no longer waiting for things to fall into place, no longer wondering if dreams are possible. That version of you is already walking with certainty, already living inside the reality you once thought was far away. Think of the times when life whispered to you in strange ways. Perhaps a book slipped from a shelf, right when you needed its words. Or a stranger spoke a single sentence that pierced your heart at exactly the right moment. Or maybe, just maybe, this very video appeared on your screen when your spirit was quietly asking for guidance. These are not accidents. They are not coincidences. They are threads of light woven between the present you and the future you, guiding you home, like invisible compasses. You see, the future self is not a stranger. It is not some distant figure waiting decades ahead. That self exists in what mystics and scientists alike call the eternal now, the field where all timelines exist at once. And when a sign enters your life, it's as if that wiser version of you has reached back across the veil to say, I am here, I am real, and I am waiting for you to remember. But here's the truth. These signs are invitations, not guarantees. Too often we brush them aside, dismiss them as coincidence, or bury them under the noise of our rational mind. Yet, if you dare to lean into them, if you dare to let your heart answer the call, something remarkable happens. The distance between who you believe yourself to be and who you truly are begins to dissolve. I want you to imagine this like a river. Most of us spend our days swimming upstream, struggling, resisting, trying to control every current. But your future self already knows how to float with the water. They are not forcing the river. They are carried by its natural flow. And the invitation in this very moment is simple. Will you keep exhausting yourself, swimming against what is? Or will you release into the stream that already knows where to take you? This isn't about becoming someone different. It isn't about stacking more layers on top of who you are. No, my friend. It's about peeling back the layers that were never truly you in the first place. The doubts, the masks, the fearful stories. Your future self is not waiting for you to add more. They are waiting for you to shed what isn't real, so that what has always been true can finally breathe. And here's the beauty: every time you follow one of those subtle nudges, every time you say yes to the quiet pull inside, you collapse the distance between timelines. You start to embody the vibration of that realized self. And reality, like a mirror, cannot help but rearrange itself to reflect that frequency. Life becomes less about chasing, more about aligning, less about striving, more about allowing. So if you feel a stirring inside as you listen now, know that it is not my words that move you. It is your own future calling you closer. It is the echo of your highest self reverberating in the chambers of your heart, reminding you that you do not need to wait for permission. You do not need to earn worthiness. You only need to recognize what is already present within you. Take this moment, right here, as confirmation that you are not lost, confirmation that everything you have lived so far has been a preparation for this awakening. The book that fell, the voice that spoke, the video that found you, they are breadcrumbs leading you back to yourself. And now, as you hear these words, feel into them, not with your head but with your whole being. You are not required to become more. You are invited to remember more. Remember the part of you that has always been whole, already aligned, already free. Because when you do, you will realize something extraordinary. The future you are seeking is not ahead of you. It is already here, waiting patiently for you to say yes. 1. The frequency of your future self. There is an energy that moves through you even now. Soft, but undeniable. It is not born from your past. nor is it chained to the stories you've told about who you are. It comes from a deeper place, what we might call your future self. And this future self, this wiser version of you, does not send letters or knock at your door in the ways you've been taught to expect. Instead, they speak through frequency, through vibration, through the subtle language of energy that life itself understands far more fluently than words. Imagine a tuning fork struck in a quiet room. Even before you can identify the note, you can feel it in your bones. That is how the frequency of your future self moves through you. It is not a thought that demands proof. It is not a voice that shouts. It is a quiet resonance, a signature that belongs only to you. When you catch it, something inside whispers, "This is me. This is who I truly am." The question, then, is not whether your future self is calling to you. They always are. The question is, are you attuned enough to feel it? Too often, the static of daily life drowns it out. We are busy with noise, with worry, with all the small battles of survival. And in that noise, the signal feels faint. But the moment you slow down, when you allow silence to wrap around you, you begin to notice the subtle pull. It's not a command, but an invitation. Your choices are the dial that tune you closer to or further from that signal. Think of it like adjusting a radio. When you are living in fear, when you choose what makes you small, the static grows. You hear fragments of the song, but not the whole. Yet, the moment you decide to live from love, from expansion, from trust, the sound clears. The song that has always been playing comes through in full. That is why your decisions carry so much more weight than you realize. Each thought, each action is not just practical, it is vibrational. When you decide to speak with kindness instead of defensiveness, you are tuning the dial. When you invest in your growth rather than your excuses, you are tuning the dial. When you walk into the day as if you already belong in the life you dream of, you are tuning the dial. And slowly, the outer world begins to rearrange, as if responding to your frequency. I know this may sound poetic, but it is practical too. Think about the times you felt completely certain about something, long before it unfolded. Perhaps you knew a relationship was ending, even before words were spoken, or you sensed an opportunity would open for you, even before the email arrived. That wasn't chance. That was your frequency brushing against the reality that was waiting for you. Your future self has already lived through the doubts you now carry. They have walked through the fear, the hesitation, the second-guessing, and so, when they send their frequency, it is not to promise you that one day things might improve. It is to remind you that the life you long for already exists. The moment you begin to embody the vibration of that life now, the gap between where you stand and where you're going begins to collapse. This is why forcing and struggling often leaves us exhausted, because you cannot push your way into a new reality with the energy of the old one. You cannot become expansive by contracting. You cannot arrive at love by walking the road of fear. The future self calls you to step into the feeling first, to embody the calm certainty, even before the evidence appears. And when you do, the world cannot help but mirror it back to you. So perhaps the invitation today is simple. Instead of asking, "When will things change?" pause and ask, "How would my future self feel in this moment? Would they carry themselves with trust or with doubt? Would they breathe deeply or hold their breath? Would they see obstacles as walls or as doors disguised in shadow?" Every time you choose the answer that expands you, you are tuning more clearly to their frequency. You are stepping closer to the life that already exists in the eternal now. And soon enough, you'll notice that reality bends around you, not because you forced it, but because you remembered how to live in harmony with it. Your future self is not far away. They are here, humming through your being like a song you've always known, but almost forgotten. Tune in, trust it, and let the melody carry you forward. Gittering, Quantum gratitude, gratitude, my friend, is more than a polite thank you whispered after receiving something. It is more than writing a list in a journal of blessings you can count with your hands. True gratitude, the kind your future self lives by, is not tied to what appears in the moment. It is not about waiting until the house is built, or the bank account is full, or the body is healed, before you can finally breathe out in relief. No, quantum gratitude is born from a deeper knowing. It is the awareness that what you long for is already yours in the unseen. It is gratitude that does not depend on conditions. It is gratitude that recognizes the seed as the tree, the sunrise as inevitable, even in the darkest night. Think of a farmer who plants a seed. When he covers it with soil, he does not sit by the field, wringing his hands, wondering if the harvest will ever come. He feels gratitude even before the first green shoots push through the earth. Why? Because he trusts the process. He knows the harvest is already contained within the seed. That is what quantum gratitude feels like. It is thanking life not for what will come someday, but for what has already been sown, already assured in the unseen soil of your becoming. Your future self walks with this kind of gratitude. They do not wake up with anxiety, hoping that things will turn out. They rise each morning with a certainty that life is unfolding exactly as it should. Their gratitude is not hope disguised. It is the vibration of completion. It is the frequency of it is already done. And here is the miracle of it when you carry gratitude in this way. You collapse the distance between what is unseen and what is visible. You shorten the timeline between longing and receiving, because gratitude shifts your frequency into alignment with the reality where your desire already exists. It is as if you are stepping into that reality early, living in the energy of fulfillment before the form has arrived. I want you to remember a time in your life when something you deeply needed eventually came. Maybe it was an unexpected check in the mail. Maybe it was a friend showing up when you felt alone. Maybe it was healing that came after a long season of pain. Looking back, don't you see that it was already making its way to you? That the answer was forming long before you held it in your hands? Quantum gratitude allows you to live from that, knowing now, without waiting for hindsight. This is not about pretending. It is not about lying to yourself or forcing positive thinking. It is about shifting the lens through which you see. Instead of living from lack, I don't have, I'm not enough. It isn't here. You live from sufficiency. It is coming. It is unfolding. In some sense, it already is. That subtle change in posture changes everything, because the universe responds to your being, not just your words. You can say affirmations all day long, but if underneath you still carry the vibration of fear or lack, the signal is muddy. Gratitude, felt honestly in your bones, cleans the signal. It tells life, I am aligned with the version of me who already has this, and life mirrors it back, piece by piece. Picture this when you thank life in advance. You are like a singer, humming a melody that hasn't yet reached the ears of the audience. But in your heart, the song is already whole. And when you hum long enough, the music fills the room, and others hear it too. Gratitude is that humming. It is the quiet declaration that what you seek is not in question. It is already on its way. There is also a healing here. Many of us have spent years believing that gratitude can only come once the storm has passed. But the truth is, gratitude is what carries you through the storm. It is what steadies your hand on the wheel when the night feels endless. Gratitude is the lantern that glows, not after you've reached the safe house, but while you are still walking in the dark. And when you live like this, the future bends toward you. Your future self, already steady and fulfilled, is pulled closer into your present moment. Gratitude is the bridge that brings them near. Each time you whisper, thank you not for what might happen, but for what is already true in the deepest sense, you are collapsing the timeline between who you are now and who you are becoming. So tonight, before you close your eyes, we don't just thank life for what you can see. Thank it for what you cannot yet see but know in your soul is already real. Thank it for the love that is forming, the opportunities that are aligning, the healing that is weaving itself through your being. And then, rest. Not with worry, but with peace, because your gratitude has already opened the door, and your future self is walking you through it. 3. Living in the eternal now. There's a quiet truth that often slips through the cracks of our hurried minds. Time is not what we think it is. We've been taught to believe it runs in a straight line, from past to present to future, like train tracks stretching endlessly ahead. But if you've ever paused in a deep moment of stillness, you may have felt something different. You may have sensed that all of it, the memories you carry, the dreams you long for, the moment you are breathing now, exists together in a single, timeless field. Your future is not a distant shore you must strain to reach. It is already here, resting in the eternal now, layered within the same space as this very moment. Imagine it like light shining through stained glass. The colors appear different depending on where you stand, but the light itself is constant, unchanged. The future you is like that light, already whole, already present, waiting for you to turn toward it. The mind, of course, resists this. It clings to clocks, calendars, and deadlines. It whispers, "You'll get there someday, if you work hard enough, if you deserve it enough." And so we live as though the life we long for is always just out of reach, one more mile down the road. But what if that is the greatest illusion of all? What if the truth is that nothing is far, that every possibility already exists, and your only task is to step into the frequency of it now? When I speak of living in the eternal now, I don't mean abandoning responsibility or ignoring the flow of days. I mean remembering that the deepest part of you does not live by the clock. Your soul does not know past or future. It knows only presence. That is why, when you allow yourself to sink fully into a moment, into a sunrise, into laughter with a loved one, into a breath taken without rush, you feel free. You feel infinite, because in that instant, you have touched the eternal now, where nothing is missing. It is in this eternal now that your future self resides. They are not standing far away, waiting for you to become worthy enough to meet them. They are here, whispering through synchronicities, through intuition, through the deep pulls of your heart. When you align with that awareness, you realize you are not traveling toward them. You are simply uncovering what has been true all along. Think of it like a radio again. All the stations exist at once, filling the air with music. You don't create them by turning the dial. You reveal them. In the same way, your future self already exists in the eternal field of now. When you shift your awareness through trust, through presence, through gratitude, you tune into their song. And here's the gentle paradox. The more you chase your future, the further it feels, because chasing affirms distance. But the moment you stop running and become present, right here, right now, you find that the distance dissolves. You realize the future is not a place you reach. It's a frequency you embody. I know this may sound abstract, but let me ground it in something real. Have you ever longed for peace, telling yourself, "I'll finally rest once this problem is solved"? Yet when one problem fades, another rises, and rest keeps running further away. But in rare moments, maybe when you sat on a porch at dusk, or listened to a song that touched something deep, you suddenly felt that peace anyway. Nothing in the outside world had changed. Yet, you touched it. That is the eternal now. Peace does not wait at the end of a solved problem. It waits in your willingness to enter the present moment fully. The same is true for love, for abundance, for joy. They do not sit in the future. waiting for conditions to line up perfectly. They exist now, like rivers running beneath the soil, waiting for you to dig just deep enough to feel the water on your hands. So the invitation is this: stop living as though your life is always ahead of you. Stop believing the lie that you will arrive one day if you just run faster. Instead, breathe. Enter this moment with your whole being, because this moment already contains the seed of the life you dream of. Living in the eternal now is not about escaping reality. It is about discovering that reality has always been more vast, more compassionate, more whole than your linear mind could ever imagine. And when you remember that, when you learn to rest in the now with trust, you will find that your future has already been here, quietly waiting for you to notice. 4. Choosing love over fear. Every choice you make carries a vibration. It may seem small on the surface, whether you speak up or stay silent, whether you reach out or retreat, whether you open your heart or close it. But each choice is a fork in the road, pointing you toward fear or toward love. And these choices, repeated day after day, form the path of your life. Your future self does not live from fear. They are not paralyzed by what-ifs, not shackled by the stories of unworthiness that haunt so many of us. They live from expansion. They trust the quiet current of life. They trust the intelligence that breathes the seasons, that turns acorns into forests, that brings the tide back to shore. And because they trust, they choose love. But let's be honest, fear often feels louder. Fear dresses itself in the voice of reason. It says, don't risk it. Don't hope too much. Stay safe. Fear convinces us that contraction is protection, when in truth, contraction keeps us small, locked inside the same cycle. I have lived there myself. Nights of sleepless worry, days of shrinking back when something inside me longed to expand. And I can tell you, fear never delivered the safety it promised. It only delayed the life waiting for me. Love, on the other hand, is quiet but steady. It doesn't argue. It doesn't demand proof. It simply whispers, trust me, step forward. Love doesn't always erase a risk, but it changes how you meet it. When you choose from love, even in uncertainty, you feel yourself expand rather than contract. You begin to breathe more deeply. You notice your shoulders lower, your body soften. That is not weakness. It is alignment. It is your future self breaking through, saying, this is who we are. Choosing love over fear does not mean you will never feel afraid again. Fear is part of being human, but your relationship with it changes. Fear may knock at the door, but you no longer invite it in to sit at the table. You thank it for its concern, and then you choose differently. You choose to move toward what expands you. Even if your voice shakes, even if your knees tremble, I want you to remember a moment when you did something despite being afraid. Maybe you confessed your feelings to someone, unsure how they would respond. Maybe you started over after loss, even though your heart was heavy. Maybe you walked into a room where you felt unworthy, but you showed up anyway. Do you recall the way life responded, how it opened? Even just a little, to meet you. That was love guiding you, and you choosing to follow. Your future self has learned to do this, not once, not twice, but as a way of life. They don't wait for fear to disappear before they act. They choose in alignment with love and let fear dissolve in the wake of that choice. Each time they pick love, their world expands. Doors open, relationships deepen, the frequency of their life rises. And when you make those same choices now, you step into resonance with them. You shorten the distance between the present you and the self who already lives free. It doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes choosing love is as small as forgiving yourself when the old patterns resurface. Sometimes it's pausing before reacting, breathing instead of lashing out. Sometimes it's speaking gently to yourself in the mirror, Even when the critical voice inside is loud, these choices may seem ordinary, but they are sacred. Each one is a realignment, a turning of the dial toward the frequency of your future self. The truth is, fear will always offer you the illusion of safety, while love will always invite you into freedom. One keeps you surviving, the other helps you live. And your future self, the one who has already stepped into alignment, knows the difference. They are calling you, gently but firmly, to lay fear aside and to walk with them in the wide-open space of love. So today, when you feel the pull of fear, when it tells you to hold back, to protect, to stay small, pause, ask yourself, what would love choose here and then, even if it feels uncomfortable? Let that answer guide you, because every time you choose love, you collapse another layer of distance between who you are and who you are becoming. Love is not just an emotion. It is a frequency. It is the very frequency of your future self. And each time you live from it, you step closer to that reality. Not tomorrow, not someday, but right now. 5. Shedding the old self. There comes a time in every journey when holding on becomes heavier than letting go. You feel it in your chest, in your bones, even in your breath. The self you once thought you needed, the masks, the roles, the old stories, begin to crumble. And though it feels unsettling, this is not the end of you. It is the unveiling of you. Think of the caterpillar entering its cocoon. To the outside eye, it looks like death, like an ending. The caterpillar must dissolve, breaking down into something unrecognizable. And yet, inside that dissolution, something extraordinary is happening. The wings of the butterfly are forming. In the same way, when the layers of your false self begin to fall away, it feels like loss. But in truth, it is transformation. Your future self has already walked this passage. They have faced the discomfort of watching pieces of their identity dissolve. The version of themselves built on fear, on seeking approval, on clinging to control. They learned, sometimes through pain, that what falls away is not who they are, but who they no longer need to be. And you, too, will feel this call. Life has a way of showing us when it's time to shed. The friendships that no longer nourish you begin to fade. The habits that once gave comfort now feel empty. The beliefs that once kept you safe now feel like cages. It can be frightening. It can feel like losing yourself. But I promise you, what you are losing is only the false skin. The real you has been waiting underneath. Patient, enduring, untouched by the storms. I know how hard it can be to let go. We become attached to the familiar, even when it hurts. The old identity is like a coat we've worn for years. It may be tattered, but it feels safe. Taking it off leaves us vulnerable, exposed. But freedom does not come from clinging to what has outlived its purpose. Freedom comes from the courage to stand bare, to trust that what is emerging is stronger, truer, and more beautiful than what has been lost. The shedding will not happen all at once. It is not a single dramatic moment, but a process, layer after layer, belief after belief. Each time you choose to forgive instead of resent, a layer falls. Each time you tell yourself the truth instead of a convenient lie, another layer dissolves. Each time you act from love instead of fear, you are peeling away the false and revealing the real. And yes, sometimes it feels like breaking. Sometimes it feels like chaos, like the ground beneath you is shaking. But that shaking is not meant to destroy you. It is meant to free you. The cracks are where the light comes in. The unraveling is what makes space for wings. Your future self looks back at this moment, not with pity, but with compassion. They remember the sting of letting go, the confusion of no longer recognizing themselves. And yet, they know the truth that this very unraveling is the doorway to your becoming. So when you find yourself standing in the rubble of what you used to be, remember this: it is not your destruction you are witnessing, but your rebirth. Like the butterfly, you will not emerge weaker, but lighter, not smaller, but freer. If you can, try to bless what is leaving. Thank the friendships that taught you lessons. Even if they ended, thank the habits that carried you as far as they could. Even if they can't carry you further, thank the old stories for protecting you when you didn't know better. Even as you release them now, gratitude softens the shedding. It reminds you that even what you outgrow once had its place in your evolution. The path of becoming is not about adding more, but about letting go of what isn't you. Your future self shines not because they acquired more masks, but because they laid them down, and each time you release a layer, you draw closer to their light. So don't be afraid of the unraveling. Don't mistake the ache of shedding for failure. It is the sound of truth breaking through. It is the call of your own soul, asking you to trust what comes after. You are not losing yourself. You are finding yourself, and what emerges will be more beautiful, more real, and more free than anything you've left behind. 6. Discipline in stillness. There is a strength that doesn't roar, doesn't demand attention, and doesn't need to prove itself. It is the strength of stillness. Your future self is not carried away by every noise of the world, not tossed around by every storm of opinion, news, or fear. They have learned the rare discipline of returning again and again to the quiet center within. Like a candle burning steadily in the wind, they remain lit, not because there is no wind, but because they have discovered how to stand in it without flickering out. We often think of discipline as force, waking up earlier, pushing harder, tightening our grip. And yes, sometimes discipline is about structure and effort, but the deepest discipline, the kind your future self has mastered, is gentler. It is the discipline of not getting lost in the chaos, the discipline of pausing before reacting, the discipline of listening to the still, small voice inside, when the world is shouting 100 other things. This kind of discipline does not exhaust you, it sustains you, because it's not about controlling life, it's about aligning with it. Think of a musician who practices until their art becomes second nature. They no longer have to think about every note. The song flows through them. In the same way, your future self has practiced returning to stillness so many times that it has become their natural rhythm. They do not have to remind themselves every moment to stay calm. The calm is already their home. But let's be honest, it doesn't start that way. At first, stillness feels like a fight. You sit in silence, and the noise inside only grows louder. Memories rise, worries, chatter, and your body twitches with impatience. I know that feeling well. For years, I believed stillness meant I was wasting time. I thought productivity lived in movement, in filling every hour. But the truth is, without stillness, my movement was frantic, scattered, and often empty. Only when I learned to return to quiet did my actions begin to carry weight. Your future self has walked through that same discomfort. They sat in the unease of silence until it became a friend. They breathed through the restlessness until it softened. And in that space, they discovered something. Extraordinary stillness is not empty. It is full of guidance, full of wisdom, full of energy that you can't access when you're always rushing. Discipline in stillness means you don't have to run with every impulse. You don't chase every thought, every fear, every desire. You learn to observe, to breathe, to let things pass. And in doing so, you begin to choose with clarity rather than compulsion. You respond to life instead of reacting to it. Imagine standing at the center of a busy street, cars rushing in every direction, horns blaring, lights flashing. That is what your mind feels like most days. Now imagine stepping into a quiet garden, where the noise fades and the only sound is the wind moving gently through the leaves. That is what your future self has created inside themselves. A garden of stillness, where they can return no matter how loud the world becomes. And here's the truth. This stillness does not remove the storms of life. Bills still come. People still disappoint. The body still grows tired. But when you are anchored in inner quiet, the storms do not carry you away. You may bend, but you do not break. You may feel the wind, but you remain lit, like that candle steady in the breeze. This is why stillness is discipline, because it requires choice. Every day, you are tempted to rush, to react, to drown in distraction. But your future self has chosen differently. They have chosen to pause. They have chosen to breathe. They have chosen to return again and again to the place where silence speaks louder than noise. And in that discipline, something remarkable happens. The chaos outside begins to lose its grip. The world no longer dictates your rhythm. You begin to move at the pace of your own soul. And discipline stops being a struggle. It becomes a natural pulse, like the beating of your heart. So when life feels overwhelming, remember this. You don't need to fix everything at once. You don't need to hold it all together. You only need to return to stillness, even if just for a breath. That is the discipline your future self lives by, and it is enough to light the way. 7. Active patience. Patience is often misunderstood. We picture it as waiting in a long line, tapping our foot, trying not to lose our temper. We imagine it as sitting in silence, while life withholds what we long for. And in that picture, patience feels powerless, like an endless pause button. But your future self has learned that true patience is not passive at all. It is not idly waiting for life to rescue you. It is an active trust, a steady partnership with time itself. Your future self does not see delays as punishments. They see them as preparation. They know that every pause, every setback, every not yet is shaping you into someone who can hold what you desire without breaking under its weight. They trust that the very moments you are most tempted to despair are the ones teaching you the endurance you'll need when your dreams arrive. Think of a tree. You don't dig up the roots every day to check if it's growing. You water it, you give it sunlight, and you trust the unseen work happening beneath the soil. That's active patience. It doesn't mean doing nothing. It means tending to what you can while letting life handle the timing. It means staying faithful in the small steps, while trusting that the larger unfolding is already on its way. I've walked through seasons where nothing seemed to move, where prayers echoed back in silence. And I know how heavy that can feel, how tempting it is to believe you've been forgotten. But looking back, I can see that those seasons were not empty. They were shaping me. They were teaching me how to stand in uncertainty, how to build resilience, how to deepen my roots. And when the breakthrough finally came, I was ready in a way I never would have been without the waiting. Your future self remembers this. They remember the nights of wondering when, the mornings of frustration, the years of not yet, and they are grateful for them, because those were the moments that carved strength into their spirit. Those were the delays that became the very foundation of their freedom. Active patience is like breathing with life instead of fighting it. It is showing up each day, not with clenched fists, but with open hands. It is trusting that the timing is intelligent, even when you cannot see the full picture. And in that trust, there is peace, not because everything is easy, but because you stop treating delays as enemies. You begin to see them as companions, teachers, carrying hidden gifts. When you live with active patience, you don't waste the waiting. You ask, what is this moment teaching me? How is it preparing me? Instead of demanding answers now, you lean into the process. You take care of the present, your health, your habits, your relationships, knowing that how you live today is shaping the tomorrow you long for. Your future self does not rush. They are not desperate. They are steady. And their steadiness comes from having lived through waiting long enough to see its purpose. They know that rushing often leads to collapse, while patience builds a foundation strong enough to last. So when life seems slow, when dreams feel delayed, remember you are not being denied. You are being prepared. Every challenge is building capacity. Every pause is carving out space inside you to hold more. Patience is not the absence of movement. It is the quiet work happening in places you cannot yet see. And one day, you'll look back and realize that the waiting wasn't wasted at all. It was the very thing that readied you for the life you were always meant to live. That is the gift of active patience. It is not waiting for life to begin. It is trusting that life is shaping you, even in the pauses, and choosing to keep walking, step by step, with faith. 8. Acting from intuition. There is a voice within you that does not argue, does not shout, and does not hand you step-by-step instructions. It speaks softly, almost like a whisper beneath the noise of thought. That voice is your intuition, and though it may not always make sense to the mind, it is the compass of the soul. Your future self has learned to trust this compass. They have walked paths that did not look logical on the surface, but later revealed themselves as perfect stepping stones. They know that the mind loves certainty. It loves proof. It loves to measure and predict. But the soul moves differently. The soul sees beyond what the mind can grasp. And so, sometimes, intuition will nudge you toward what seems unreasonable, even risky. Yet, when you follow it, you discover that life was waiting for you all along. I remember seasons when I ignored that inner knowing, times when I let my head talk me out of what my heart already knew. I stayed in places too long. I silenced truths that begged to be spoken, and I learned the hard way that when you deny your intuition, you deny yourself. It doesn't punish you, but it waits, patiently, until you are ready to listen again. And I also remember the moments I did listen. The phone call I made without planning, that opened a door I didn't know existed. The chance decision to walk down a different street, where I met someone who changed my life. The quiet, yes, to something I couldn't explain, which later unfolded into a blessing larger than I could have imagined. None of these moments were logical at the time, but they were true. And truth, even when whispered, carries a power the mind cannot replicate. Your future self moves through life this way, not recklessly, but faithfully. They honor the mind, but they don't let it run the show. They listen for the subtle pull inside, the feeling of expansion, of peace, of aliveness, and they follow it. And because they follow it, the path opens beneath their feet. Doors appear where walls once stood. Opportunities unfold without force. What looked like chaos suddenly makes sense in hindsight. Acting from intuition is not about ignoring reason. It's about recognizing that reason alone cannot take you where your soul longs to go. If you rely only on logic, you will repeat the past, because logic is built from what you already know. But intuition comes from the future. It is the echo of your highest self reaching back, guiding you forward. Of course, it can feel frightening. The mind will resist. It will demand guarantees. It will warn you of failure. And in those moments, choosing intuition feels like stepping off solid ground. But here is the paradox: only when you take that step do you discover that the ground was waiting all along. Imagine walking through fog. You can only see a few steps ahead. But when you take them, more of the road reveals itself. That is how intuition works. It doesn't show you the whole map, because the map is too vast. It shows you the next step and trusts you enough to take it. And your future self can testify. Those steps, taken with trust, will carry you exactly where you are meant to be. So the invitation is simple, though not always easy. The next time you feel that quiet nudge, don't dismiss it. Don't drown it out with doubt. Pause, breathe, and consider the possibility that your soul knows something your mind cannot yet see. Then take the step, however small, in the direction of that inner pull. Your life is not meant to be lived only from habit, from logic, from fear of what could go wrong. It is meant to be lived as a dance between the known and the unknown, between the mind and the mystery. And each time you act from intuition, you join the rhythm your future self already knows. The rhythm where life unfolds, not through control, but through trust. When you choose to live this way, something shifts. You no longer feel like you are forcing your way forward. Instead, it feels as though life itself is walking with you, guiding you, carrying you. And in truth, it always has been. You only needed the courage to listen. 9. No need to prove. Only to be present. There comes a point in the journey when you realize that the striving, the endless proving, the exhausting chase to earn your place in the world was never the way. Your future self has already discovered this truth. They do not need to prove they are worthy. They do not need to persuade anyone of their value. Their very presence carries its own quiet authority. And when you dare to stand in that kind of presence, the world cannot help but notice. So much of our life is spent trying to convince others we are good enough, capable enough, lovable enough. We chase achievements, approval, applause, hoping that if we do enough, we will finally feel enough. I know this cycle well. I spent years adding to my resume of worthiness, believing that one more accomplishment, one more compliment, one more yes from someone else would finally silence the voice inside that asked, "Am I really enough?" But that voice was never silenced by proving. It only quieted when I stopped trying to prove. Your future self has stopped running that race. They know that real worth is not earned. It is remembered. It is not given by the world. It is carried within you. When you step into that awareness, something changes in the way you move. You no longer rush to speak louder than others. You no longer beg for recognition. You simply stand, steady, grounded, present, and in that stillness, your presence says more than words ever could. Think of the sun. It does not shine to prove its brightness. It does not compete with the stars or ask for applause. It simply radiates, because that is what it is. And in its presence, life grows, and flowers open, and the world warms. Your future self lives like that sun. They shine, not to prove anything, but because shining is their nature. When you live from presence, instead of proving, you become a living testimony. People feel the difference in you. Even if they cannot explain it, they feel safe around you. Not because you are perfect, but because you are real. They feel inspired, not because you boast, but because you embody a truth they recognize in themselves. And in this way, your life itself becomes the message. You don't need to convince anyone of it. You simply are it. But let me be honest, reaching this place often comes after deep struggle. The ego fights hard to prove. It whispers that if you don't achieve more, if you don't stand out, if you don't please enough people, you'll be forgotten. Letting go of proving feels terrifying at first, as though you are stepping into invisibility. But the paradox is this: when you stop trying to prove, your true self finally becomes visible. Your future self remembers the turning point, the moment they realized their presence was enough. They recall the first time they walked into a room without shrinking, without pretending, without trying to earn space. And they remember how everything shifted. People leaned in. Opportunities came with less effort. Life began to flow. Not because they had finally proven themselves, but because they had finally stopped. This doesn't mean you stop growing, stop learning, or stop creating. It means your growth is no longer fueled by desperation. It is fueled by authenticity. You do things not to prove your worth, but to express it. You create not to gain validation, but because creation is your nature. And in this way, your actions carry a different energy, lighter, freer, more magnetic. So here is the invitation. Release the burden of proving. The next time you catch yourself working only to be seen, speaking only to be validated, pause it. Ask yourself, what if I am already enough? What if my presence is already worthy of being here? Then breathe into that truth. Stand in it, even if it feels unfamiliar. Because when you do, you will discover what your future self already knows. You are not here to argue for your worth. You are here to embody it. And when you do, your very presence becomes the proof, not through effort, but through being. The world does not need more people trying desperately to prove they are enough. It needs more people willing to stand in the quiet power of presence, living reminders that worth is not earned, but remembered. When you dare to be that, you become a mirror, and in your presence, others remember their own worth. 2. That is the gift of your future self. That is the gift of presence. 10. The ripple of transformation. One of the most beautiful truths I have learned is that your transformation never belongs to you alone. When you shift, the world around you shifts. When you awaken, even just a little, the light that grows inside you doesn't stop at the edges of your skin. It ripples outward, touching others in ways you may never fully see. Your future self understands this deeply. They know that every act of courage, every choice of love, every step into authenticity is not just for them. It's for the collective. They carry their healing not as a private treasure, but as a gift that radiates into the field. We all share, because we are not as separate as we once believed. Like drops in an ocean, each of us moves the whole. Think about it. Have you ever been in the presence of someone who was calm, and just by being near them, you felt calmer too? Or someone who radiated kindness, and it softened something inside you? That is resonance. That is the unseen exchange happening between us at all times. When one person rises, their frequency invites others to rise too. Your future self has become such a presence, a steady light that helps others find their own. Not because they try to preach or persuade, but simply because they embody a higher way of being. They show, without words, that it is possible to live differently, and in their presence, others begin to believe it too. Personal transformation is not selfish. It is service. When you choose to heal, to release old patterns, to live from love instead of fear, you are contributing to something larger than yourself. You are helping to shift the collective story of humanity. Each moment of forgiveness, each choice to stand in truth, each act of compassion is like a spark. And sparks, when they spread, can light entire forests. I remember seasons when I thought my inner work was insignificant, just small victories inside a private life. But looking back, I can see how those changes touched the people around me. When I softened, others felt safe to soften. When I stood in my truth, it gave others permission to do the same, even without trying. My transformation became an invitation for others to rise. And the same is true for you. Your future self knows the responsibility and the privilege of this ripple. They carry themselves with awareness, not in perfection, but in presence. They understand that their energy is contagious, and so they choose carefully what they embody. They know that when they walk into a room with peace, they bring peace. When they walk in with love, they bring love, and the collective shifts, subtly, but powerfully, because of it. This is why your personal journey matters so much. The healing you do within yourself is not small. It is not invisible. It is a contribution to the healing of the whole. When you confront your shadows, you lessen the weight of shadow in the world. When you cultivate joy, you add joy to the collective field. When you forgive, you make forgiveness easier for others. We are woven together in ways we cannot always see, and this means your awakening is never just your own. It is a gift that continues giving long after your moment of breakthrough has passed. So, Do not underestimate the power of your growth. Even if no one applauds it, even if no one speaks of it, know that your transformation is quietly lighting candles in the hearts of others, like one flame lighting another, without ever losing its own brilliance. Your future self lives this way, not trying to save the world, but understanding that by embodying love, they are already helping to transform it. And you, right now, are capable of the same. Remember this: each time you rise, even by one step, you lift more than just yourself. You lift the frequency of us all. You become a beacon, and others, sometimes strangers, sometimes loved ones, he will find their way home by the light you carry. That is the true influence of transformation. It begins with you, but it never ends with you. 11. Practicing embodiment. There is a simple but profound question that can shift the course of your life. If I were my future self, how would I live this day? Not in 10 years, not in some imagined tomorrow, but here, today. Most of us wait to become. We wait for the breakthrough, the relationship, the money, the recognition, before we allow ourselves to embody who we dream of being. But your future self has already discovered the truth. You don't wait to become them. You practice becoming them now, not through grand gestures, but through the smallest, most ordinary choices. Imagine waking up in the morning and asking yourself that question. If I were my future self, how would I greet this day? Perhaps they wouldn't grab their phone right away. Perhaps they'd take a moment to breathe, to stretch, to welcome the day with a sense of gratitude instead of rushing. That small act becomes a declaration: I am already stepping into the life I desire. Or maybe, as you move through your day, the answer comes in gentleness. Your future self might speak kindly to their body instead of criticizing it. They might choose nourishing food, not out of punishment, but out of respect. They might pause in the middle of a stressful moment and say, "It's okay. I'm safe. I can handle this with grace." These are not dramatic acts, but they carry the vibration of your highest self. The beauty of this practice is that it brings the future into the present. Each small act is a bridge, collapsing the distance between who you are and who you are becoming. It may not look like much on the outside, just a choice of words, a breath, a shift in posture, but in the quantum sense, it is a leap, because you are no longer waiting, you are embodying. I know how tempting it is to delay, to think, I'll be more loving when life is easier. I'll take care of myself when I have more time. I'll live with gratitude when things improve. But the truth is, waiting only postpones the life that is already available to you. Your future self is not asking you to leap mountains in a day. They are inviting you to practice alignment in the present, one step at a time. And here's what's remarkable: even the smallest alignment carries power. Saying one kind word to yourself can shift the trajectory of your day. Choosing patience in one moment of frustration can ripple into your relationships. Pausing to notice beauty, a tree, a smile, a ray of sunlight, can recalibrate your whole frequency. These may seem like small things, but they are the very acts that tune you to the vibration of your future self. Think of it like tuning an instrument. One note played in harmony shifts the entire song. In the same way, one choice, made from your future self's perspective, begins to shift the entire composition of your life. And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Your future self is not some distant version of you. They exist in the eternal now, as we spoke about before, and each time you embody their choices, whether in thought, word, or date, you are merging with them. You are stepping into their frequency, collapsing the illusion of time. So ask yourself, often and sincerely, if I were already living as my future self, what would I do here? And then, honor the answer. No matter how small, it could be as gentle as resting when you are tired instead of pushing. It could be as brave as speaking your truth instead of staying silent. It could be as loving as placing your hand over your heart and whispering, "I am enough." The practice of embodiment is not about perfection. It's about presence. It's about showing up in the little moments, again and again, until the small choices weave themselves into a new reality. And in time, you will look back and realize you did not one day suddenly become your future self. You practiced your way into them. Your future self is already here. All they ask is that you begin living, even in small ways, as if you are them now. That is the quantum leap, not a sudden miracle, but a steady practice of remembering who you already are and daring to embody it today. 12. Challenges as invitations. It is easy to believe that challenges come to break us, to block our path, to keep us from living the life we dream of. When we are in the middle of them, when the bills pile up, when the body hurts, when relationships crack open, it can feel as if life itself is pushing us away. But your future self has come to know something different. Every challenge is not a punishment, but an invitation. Your future self has lived through storms that once felt unbearable. They have felt the sting of loss, the weight of disappointment, the ache of unanswered prayers. And looking back, they do not see those moments as cruel detours. They see them as thresholds, gateways that force them to grow into a version of themselves that could hold more truth, more love, more strength than they had ever imagined. It is like the shaping of a vessel. Clay cannot hold water until it has been pressed, stretched, and fired in the heat of the kiln. In the same way, challenges stretch us, press us, sometimes even break us open, so that we can carry more of life's fullness. Without the stretching, we remain too small for the truth waiting to enter. I have lived this myself. There were times I begged life to take away the pain, to remove the obstacle, to make the path smooth. And yet, when I look back, those very moments were the ones that formed me. They were the nights that taught me resilience, the losses that deepened my compassion, the delays that taught me patience. None of it felt like a gift in the moment, but each one became a teacher that shaped the person I am today. Your future self does not resist challenges the way you might now. They meet them with openness, even gratitude, because they recognize the invitation inside them. They know that life never places a wall in front of you without also offering a door. And often, that door can only be opened by growing, by stretching beyond who you were yesterday. Challenges are not here to diminish you. They are here to expand you. They ask, will you stay small? Or will you rise? Will you cling to what you've known? Or will you dare to step into something greater? Each obstacle is a mirror, showing you the places where you are still holding on to fear, to control, to old ways of being. And each one offers you the chance to release them, to grow wider, deeper, stronger. This doesn't mean you need to welcome pain with a smile. It is human to cry, to struggle, to feel afraid. But even in those tears, you can hold the awareness that something larger is unfolding. You can ask yourself, what is this challenge inviting me into? What strength is it trying to awaken in me? What truth is it asking me to see? Your future self has asked those questions many times, and because they did, they stepped into new possibilities that fear would have kept hidden. They are who they are today, not in spite of their challenges, but because of them, and that is the same invitation being offered to you now. So when you face your next difficulty, pause it. Instead of asking, why me, ask, what now? What is life inviting me into? Here, that shift changes everything. It transforms struggle from a dead end into a doorway. It turns pain into a teacher. It turns loss into the soil where new life can grow. Your challenges are not here to block you. They are here to shape you. They are here to prepare you to hold the greater truth of who you are. And when you embrace them, not with resentment, but with willingness, you discover what your future self already knows. Every challenge is not an end, but a beginning. So don't shrink when difficulty comes. Don't mistake the weight of the moment for the measure of your worth. Instead, remember this simple truth. Each challenge is an invitation to rise, to grow, to become, and when you accept it, you step closer to the life that has been waiting for you all along. 13. Integration into everyday life. It is one thing to understand wisdom in your mind, and another to live it in your body. Many of us gather insights, collect teachings, even repeat beautiful words. But your future self has learned the deeper truth. Transformation is not in knowing, it is in living. They do not stop at inspiration. They integrate it into the very fabric of their days. Your future self has discovered that spiritual truth is not meant to stay on the page of a book or in the quiet of meditation alone. It is meant to walk with you into the grocery store, into your conversations, into your work, into the way you treat your neighbor. It is meant to be woven into the ordinary, the pummit, because real transformation does not ask you to escape life. It asks you to embody truth right in the middle of it. Think about how often we hear words like love, compassion, patience, and yet when the pressure rises, we return to old habits of anger, fear, or haste. That is not failure. It is simply a reminder that knowing is not enough. The practice is in bringing those truths into action, again and again, until they are no longer something we try to remember, but something we naturally are. Your future self lives this way. When they speak, their words carry kindness, not because they are performing kindness, but because they have become it. When they work, they carry integrity, not because they are trying to impress, but because honesty is their nature now, even in the way they walk. Steady, unhurried, present. They show that truth has entered not only their mind, but their being. This is integration when wisdom is no longer separate from daily life, but alive within it. When what you believe on the inside shows itself in how you live on the outside. And it happens not in giant leaps, but in small choices, choosing to listen instead of interrupt, choosing to forgive instead of holding on to bitterness, choosing to pause and breathe instead of lashing out in anger. These are the places where spirit meets flesh. I know from my own journey that integration is not instant per places. There were years when I knew the words of peace, but my actions did not reflect them. I could speak of patience, but inside, I burned with hurry. I could write of love, but still carried sharpness in my tone. It was humbling to realize that wisdom that stays only in the mind is fragile. It cracks under pressure, but when it becomes embodied, when it is practiced in the small, hidden moments of daily life, it becomes unshakable. Your future self has walked through that humbling too. They have failed, stumbled, forgotten, but they kept returning, over and over. They practiced, and slowly, what once took effort became natural, like learning to ride a bicycle. The wobbling and falling gave way to balance. And now, their life itself is the teaching. This is why the smallest actions matter so much. Do not overlook them. The way you speak to yourself in the mirror is integration. The way you respond when someone cuts you off in traffic is integration. The way you choose to begin and end your day, with gratitude or with complaint, is integration. These tiny moments are where the truth you carry either lives or remains only an idea. Your future self shines not because they know everything, but because they live what they know. And that is the invitation for you, to stop waiting for the big moments of transformation and start bringing truth into the ordinary, to remember that every word, every step, every breath is a chance to embody the wisdom you've been given. So, as you move through your day, don't ask only, "What do I know?" Ask, "How can I live it here, in this moment?" And when you begin to answer that question, you will find that your future self is no longer a distant dream. They are here, in your words, in your choices, in your presence. Integration is where knowledge becomes life. And when you begin to live this way, your very existence becomes a quiet, steady teaching. 1. The world is longing to see. 14. Reading the language of the universe. Life is always speaking to you, not in the language of words, but in the quiet rhythm of events, in the subtle alignment of moments, in the so-called coincidences that arrive with uncanny precision. Your future self has learned to read this language, to trust it, to walk with it. They no longer dismiss synchronicities as accidents. They recognize them as conversation. The universe, answering back to the frequency they carry. Perhaps you have felt it before. You think of someone, and within minutes, they call. You wrestle with a question, and the next day, you stumble across a book that holds the exact sentence you needed. You hesitate on a choice, and then a sign appears so clearly that you almost laugh at its timing. These are not random. These are whispers of the universe, showing you that your energy is never moving alone. Your future self lives attuned to this. They understand that the universe is not silent, but responsive. It reflects back not what you demand, but what you radiate. If you walk in fear, life echoes with fear. If you walk in trust, life echoes with trust. This is not punishment or reward. It is resonance. Like a mirror, the universe shows you what you are carrying inside. I remember times when I was too hurried, too consumed by worry, to notice. Signs passed by like birds overhead, unrecognized. But in the seasons when I slowed down, softened, and paid attention, I began to see the pattern. I began to notice that life was not random at all. It was responsive, almost tender, in the way it placed guidance along my path. And in those moments, I realized I was never as lost as I thought. Reading the language of the universe requires slowing down. The signs are rarely shouted. They are whispered. They show up in the quiet nudge of intuition, in the timing of a meeting, in the unfolding of a chance encounter. If you are rushing, you will miss them. But when you pause, breathe, and listen with your whole being, the pattern becomes clear. Your future self has become fluent in this language. They don't cling to every detail, desperately seeking meaning in everything. Instead, they stay open, receptive, curious. They trust that the universe is like a river, always flowing, always guiding, and that the currents will carry them where they are meant to go if they keep listening. It's important to remember, reading the universe is not about superstition. It is not about forcing signs to appear or twisting every moment into a message. It is about relationship, a dialogue between your inner world and the greater whole. When you raise your frequency through gratitude, love, and presence, the universe responds in kind. Opportunities align, people appear, the right words arrive, not because you are lucky, but because you are in tune. Think of it like dancing with a partner. If you resist, if you move against the rhythm, the dance feels clumsy. But when you relax into the music, when you trust the steps, you move as one. Your future self dances with the universe like this. They don't force the rhythm, they feel it. They follow it. And in return, life becomes a graceful unfolding rather than a constant struggle. So, how do you begin to read this language? By slowing down, by noticing the so-called coincidences, by asking yourself, what might this be showing me? Not in fear, but in curiosity. And then, by aligning your energy, not with desperation, but with trust. When you do, you will see the pattern begin to emerge. Your challenges, your opportunities, your delays, your synchronicities, they are all part of the same conversation. And when you listen, you will see that the universe has never stopped responding. It has always been echoing back the frequency you carry, waiting for you to notice, waiting for you to join the dialogue. Your future self does not live wondering if they are on the right path. They live knowing that the path is revealed one sign at a time, one response at a time, as long as they stay tuned to the language of the universe. And that is the invitation for you now, to stop treating life as a puzzle to be solved, and start treating it as a conversation to be heard. Because the truth is, you are not alone. You never have been. The universe has been speaking to you all along. And the moment you begin to listen, you will see the beauty of how deeply it has been listening to you. You are already the future you seek, you see. Your future self is not a stranger. It is not some distant version of you hidden away in the years to come. It is the truest expression of who you are. The part of you that has always been here, waiting patiently, whispering gently, guiding quietly, until you are ready to step into alignment. This journey is not about dreaming of a life far away. It is about remembering the life that is already pulsing within you. The invitation has never been to escape where you are, but to inhabit it more fully, to bring the qualities of your highest self into this very moment. Because when you embody gratitude, love, stillness, and trust here, the distance between who you are and who you will be dissolves. You realize they are one and the same. I know how easy it is to look at the future as something just out of reach. Always tomorrow. Always waiting for better circumstances. Always tied to some achievement or change. I have lived in that illusion, believing that once I earned more, once I proved more, once I overcame enough, then I would finally be whole. But the truth is gentler than that. Wholeness is not something you arrive at. It is something you return to, and you return by peeling back the layers of fear, of proving, of waiting, until all that remains is presence. Your future self is not calling you to become someone else. They are calling you to release what you are not, to let go of the masks, the pretenses, the stories that have weighed you down, to choose love instead of fear. Not once, but moment by moment, to live gratitude not as a reaction to blessings, but as a declaration that wholeness is already yours, to rest in the eternal now, where everything you seek is already present. This is not theory. It is practice. It is the small, steady choices that shape your days. Speaking with kindness when anger tempts you. Returning to stillness when chaos surrounds you. Trusting the unseen when fear shouts loudly. These choices may look ordinary, but they are the very steps by which your future self merges with your present. They are how transformation becomes real. And here is the miracle: when you begin to live this way, you not only change yourself, you change the world around you. You become a living proof that transformation is possible. You carry a frequency that ripples outward, calming, inspiring, and lifting others without you even trying. You become a light, not by effort, but by presence, and the world needs more of that light. Not grand speeches, not constant striving, but people willing to embody truth so deeply that their very presence heals. So the message today is not to sit and dream, but to act in alignment with the self who already exists within you, to breathe as they would breathe, to choose as they would choose, to live as though the life you desire is not a faraway horizon, but a reality that begins with this very step, because it does. When you live this way, the search ends. You stop chasing the future like a shadow on the horizon. You stop waiting for the right time, and you realize that the future you have longed for is already walking with you, already breathing in you, already here. You don't need to find the future. You don't need to chase it, because when you live in love, gratitude, stillness, and truth, you are the future. You are the living embodiment of the life you once thought was out of reach. And in that moment, you no longer ask, "When will I get there?" You smile, you breathe, and you know, I am already here.